Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to 22 Panels. My guest tonight is Michele Abounader, who is the editor of the currently funding on BackerKIt When I Was Young, an LGBTQIA plus charity comic anthology with friends of the podcast, Christopher Cantwell, offering or writing a story, and recent friend of the podcast, Heather Antos, actually contributing her first interior art. How'd you talk her into that?
That's the big question, I think, on everyone's mind is how, and I honestly, I don't know, maybe I blacked it out. I don't know. I think I just asked, and I don't know if I asked a lot or was particularly annoying and wore her down, but she said yes. So I kind of just took it and ran with it. Yeah. So, and she's said a few times, this is the first and only time I'm doing this. I want to do it just so that
I
I've
think
done it.
I think what she said on our air was uh, she was doing the thing that she swore she was never going to do, and she doesn't know why she's doing it, but it's for a good cause. Of course, she was
I
actually
just,
drawing while I was talking to her, so I think that might have contributed to it. She's feeling that deadline push.
yeah, I don't
The
know. I'm
deadline
happy
push
that
for
she said
artists is a real
yes.
thing. I'm happy that she said yes
Yeah.
too.
I think
Um,
it's always kind of cool when someone in one of my books is sort of doing something that um pushes himself into sort of like a new territory because it feels like, oh, I'm being trusted with this cool thing, right?
right.
Like Heather's never done interior. I get to edit the editor, right? That's kind of the joke. Like I I keep joking about how I'm going to be like a nightmare about her layouts and I'm going to give a ton of
Are,
notes and I'm just going
are
to be the worst.
are you making her get her thumbnails approved?
Oh yeah, I'm going to make her go through every step of this
Every
process in
every
a
step.
wild way.
You, you,
I'm going to have a ton of notes. I'm going to make this an absolute nightmare for her. I can promise you that.
I
And
hope that
Heather's
you have
actually,
a pre-existing relationship with Heather, and then this.
yes, it's fine. She's a friend
Yeah, I just
and
met her, and I'm going to put her through hell because she's doing this thing for my charity.
honestly, I wouldn't put that past me either. Putting
Okay.
people I just met kind of through hell for charity. It is what you have to do. But no, Heather's great. I'm obviously also an editor and I've only been doing this for a few years. I learn a lot from Heather. I ask her for a lot of professional advice. She's incredible. So I'm really grateful to be trusted with this first and only interiors of Heather Antos, and I hope to make it an absolute nightmare for her. Yeah. Um,
So that when you're selling the 10th anniversary edition of this book, you can say
yeah.
still first and only.
First and only, right. Like, and she's actually not the only person in this book who's drawing that isn't always drawing. Jadzia Axelrod of Galaxy the Prettiest Star, Hot Girl for DC. Like, Jadzia is also drawing her own story in this, which is um incredible. I've seen some pages already. Like, she's great. And it's not something that she normally does. And she felt that her story was so personal that she wanted to do it herself to make sure that it was translating to the page the way that she wanted it to because of how personal her story was. So
That's
again,
very
that's
cool.
it's another creator who's like trusting me to put this book together in a way that will honor taking that risk. And you told me earlier that Sharp Wit and the Company of Women is in your queue. Jadzia
It's in my
also has
queue.
a wonderful story in that book with Rye Hickman, who's also in When I Was Young. Um, I love Rye Hickman. Everything they've ever done is incredible. Um, but in Sharp Wit, they have a story together. It's great. But yeah, so both Heather and Jadzia are drawing and they don't normally draw. So I think it's really cool to be able to like sort of offer something that you're not going to get anywhere else is these creators
Oh, I
drawing.
definitely. I mean, this one has other hooks for me, but
There's so many hooks to this book. I feel like I could talk all night about reasons
absolutely
why you should back
right,
this. Like,
absolutely. But and we will. I mean, maybe not all night. I have to teach in the morning, but you know what I mean. Um, but I will say with any anthology, seeing somebody do something that isn't typical of them, whether it's somebody who
Mhm.
only does superhero stories writing a horror story, or somebody that you only know from autobio comics doing a Spider-Man story, or whatever. And anytime I see something where somebody is doing something that I'm not used to seeing them do, I'm like, oh, that's probably going to be worth the price of admission right there. Because they wouldn't do it unless they felt like they had, I mean, particularly, something. I mean, and I loved that you're giving page rates. I did read all the way down to the bottom, and
Oh
I
yeah.
love that you're not expecting your artists to work for free, even though it's a charity
I
comic,
I
because
couldn't.
that you shouldn't. You shouldn't. There's a difference between I'm not gonna take back end money or or charge an exorbitant fee, and I'm gonna give you 40 hours of free labor, or
Right.
you know what I mean?
And like,
Um,
well, here's the thing. I'm always an outspoken, passionate advocate for paying marginalized creators for their work, right? Like that's in my previous anthologies. I'm big about giving opportunity to people that don't normally get the big opportunities. So I'm always yelling, pay the gays. Like I'm very loud about it, about
I mean, I'm
how
all for paying the
much I
gays,
want
but
to
how
pay
about just
people.
pay the
So
comic people? Pay the comic
and
people.
right, but I think like based on the message of this book being like giving hope to people, being about triumph and inspiration, like how could I make this collection that's supposed to show like triumph and inspiration and also be like, but I'm not going to pay you to do
Right.
it. Like I
Right.
feel like it couldn't be both of those things. So like
I
I'm a
agree,
big believer
but
in do it loud, right?
but
Like
but but I wanted to cry yesterday when I saw that the ACLU is suing the National Labor Relations Board to try to prevent their staff from unionizing. So every once in a while, there are people or organizations that do things that seem very at
there's
odds with their
dissonance, right?
purpose.
Yeah. I I just feel like my purpose feels very simple to me, right? Like do my best to provide paid opportunity for people in the LGBT community and give people hope in some way and try to do some good and inspire younger creators to, work on their craft and know that there's a place for them in this industry. And I can't it would have I would have felt like I was at odds with my own self and my own mission if I didn't offer a page rate for this collection because I feel like I would be at odds with myself. Like there would be too much like it didn't feel right. So page rate and that's why the goal is so high. And I
Right.
I want to like get on the internet and yell, this would be funded if I wasn't paying people. Does that make you feel good? No.
Right.
Back the
No,
book. Like,
and this
but
is
that's
this
like,
is this is I mean, I brought it up because it is a big thing to me, and because hopefully, I mean, we've only got 30 some odd listeners most of the time. One of them is my mother, who I know is on our side. And
hi mom.
yeah, hi, Mom. Um, Hi, John. Mom and John are the people who almost always listen.
Hi John.
Um, but a lot of the other ones are either creators or comic shop owners, and I think they get it too. But just in case there's anybody else listening, uh, comic people don't get paid very well. So
No, not at
so I
all.
mean, it's one thing to look at a billionaire and say, "Oh, they should give up their time for free." It's
Right.
another thing to look at the person who's trying to figure out how they can sell out to pay this month's rent. And
Right.
that's the other thing that I hate is when we call any of our favorite creators sellouts because they did something to pay the rent.
Right. And
You,
I,
even in high school, that would get to me. Your favorite band would suddenly become popular, and like half the people that used to, oh, they're sellouts.
right.
I'm like, no, they're not sellouts. They don't have to work at Walmart between tours anymore.
Right. And I think one of the most heartbreaking things is like watching younger creators break themselves doing like working a
Right.
job and then coming
Right.
home and drawing all night. And I think there's a lot of value in paying people a good page rate so that they don't have to do other work while they're working for you. And
Yeah,
I think that's the idea. And shouldn't that be what it is? It's the whole
I
idea
think
that
so.
like if you have a job, you shouldn't need another job to pay your bills. And I know that's not realistic,
I
but
mean,
it's like if
it's
this is the
only
thing I
not
can
realistic
do,
because
then
we have somehow decided that work isn't as important as capital in this nation. But that's a whole
right. I
other
mean,
podcast that I've done a few times. So
I right. I don't know that we're here to discuss late stage capitalism today, but I mean, it's
it's
kind of
not
on
even late
everybody's
stage
mind, I
capitalism.
think.
It just call it what it is. It's oligarchy.
Ugh. I mean, it is. It is. I think at
It
this
is. It's
point, like,
oligarchy. It's not capitalism anymore. When I'm being really nice, I call it American style capitalism. But then I remember that it's most of European style capitalism too. So yeah, let's just call it
this is just the
oligarchy.
world. This is just the world that we live in, I think. And it's unfortunate. I just
He,
if I can pay people to do a few comic pages for me and it makes their life a little better because they had a good paying gig and it was for me, then like great.
here is the thing that gives me like lots of hope though. Most of these billionaires keep showing us over and over and over again that even when it comes to making money, they're not that smart.
No, they're not that good at it. That's the
Right.
thing. We're just like
Right.
watching them destroy things.
They have to rig the rules to
You
stay
know,
to stay rich.
I'm
But
great. I am
but
great at destroying things, and I'm
but
not a
but
billionaire. It's
but
not
but
necessary.
no, but what that means is it doesn't take a lot of people doing it well to change an industry.
No, you just have to care and you have to try.
Right.
And the that's like I mean, I work for a publisher. I work for Bad Egg Publishing as my day job. So I work in comics, and then I shut that laptop and work in comics after work. That's just such is life.
Yeah.
Um, but I love being able to give people opportunities. And I think, that's like what we should want to do as people with hiring power in the industry is to look outside the box, to find new voices and give them the opportunities that you can and not be predictable, not make the same choices over and over. And I think that like I'm
Do
like, I have a point.
different
I promise. I'm just kind
things.
of dancing around it. Right. Like do something different. And that's like
What?
that's what it takes to change the
What?
industry. It's
I
not
thought we wanted the 17th reboot of the Terminator, which I only came
I
up
mean
with
like
because you told me to
I mean
rhyme
like
your name with it.
right we might also want that, but I think a lot of people do the same thing and rebrand it as we're changing the industry like too much.
I
And
I
I
mean,
think that I think that there are people out there like really making a difference. And I don't know that people see the people that are really making a difference because a lot of it is being done kind of behind closed doors. And I think it will eventually show its face
yeah.
because there's newer people that are going to start being in the mix more.
I
And
mean,
I think things are diversifying and things are getting better. And it's not from the people that are yelling about how much they're changing the industry. I'll
no.
tell you how much.
No, I think that I mean one of the things I brought up with Heather was that I don't know that there are any more influential people on what comics look like today than Karen Berger and Shelley Bond. I think
Mhm.
20 years from now, it's going to be people like Spike Trotman and anybody who possibly you, possibly Heather, people who managed to Sloan Leong's doing some great stuff, managed to
Mhm.
step outside of the we have to find ways for corporate people to spend money on us and treat us like shit because they're hoping to sell our IP. We're
Yep.
going to find our market and get to our market and pay our people.
Mhm.
Um,
And I
and
think,
what's ironic is,
but
no, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, I think that there are people that are doing this kind of thing. You
Yeah,
just don't know because I think
absolutely.
a lot of the people that actually care about getting in the trenches and changing things are very much behind the scenes.
Yeah,
And that's okay because that's, speaking of myself as an editor, I'm usually very happy to be not to have people not have any idea that I'm doing
right,
anything. And that's how it should be. And
right.
I think that's where the change is happening. That's where it's going to happen. So
Well, I
happy
mean,
to be that silent person behind the scenes most of the time.
particularly with art, the change often happens in terms of the people who are willing to take risks and either have the money or the hustling power to do it. And those very rarely
Mhm.
are the artists themselves, because the artists are having to hustle to make the art and take their risks with the art, expecting them to somehow take all of the other risks and do all of the other hustling is like, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some people who pull it off, but it's like asking one person to be a global corporation.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
I think that's what I think when you do self-publishing, like when you helm a big project, I think you learn a lot about all the different pieces of making a comic, right? Like if you have a job at a publisher, you're doing like your job. But when you're self-publishing, you're doing like 10 different people's jobs. Like I you have like marketing people and you have salespeople and you have design people and you have, you know, people that help with like copy editing and proofreading. And when you are self-publishing, you are doing all of it. Like I write press releases. I don't know how to write a press release. I
Well,
mean, I
you do
do, but like
now.
I don't, right? I do now, but like I don't
You
I
figured it
don't
out.
technically know how to do it, but it's like it's one of those things where you kind of like you get in the trenches and I think that it gives you a greater understanding for all of the pieces of the puzzle. And it's not for everyone, self-publishing, because it really
Oh,
does take
but
lots of hats, right? Like,
but I mean, I think most people who are successful don't wind up being truly self-publishing forever, because they start realizing, if they're
I
successful,
mean,
they reach the point where they can go, "Oh, I don't like doing this part. I'm going to find somebody who I can pay to do
I'm gonna
this part."
find somebody I get paid to do this part.
Right.
That's very true. I was gonna say people are finding ways around needing direct market distribution. So self-publishing like kind of is the way for a lot of people. But yeah, absolutely. You can hire somebody to do all the stuff you don't want to do.
Right. But
Thankfully,
I mean,
we are
at some
entering
point,
a
at some point.
right. We're entering a place where there are a lot of people that do freelance PR for indie
Right.
creators and people that, you can
Well, and
find people to help you with that sort of thing now, which is nice.
I think out loud, and that's exactly what I'm doing right now. So if it winds up not going anywhere, I apologize. But I think of, um, with a couple of exceptions, uh, most of the letterers I know fell in love with lettering in part because they realized that nobody else liked to do it and they were good at it.
Mhm. That
Um,
makes sense.
so I think the more of this alternate publishing model we have, the more you will have people start specializing in, well, I'm really good at finding the right printer. I'm going to offer that service.
Michael, you want printers?
um, I'm really good at setting up the web page. I'm really,
Right.
and the next thing you know, you build a wider community of small contractors rather than everything having to be through the big corporate umbrella or whatnot. And I think we're already seeing it. there are so many more small publishers right now than there have been at any time since the like black and white boom of the 80s.
Hmm.
Only most of the publishers started before our mini pandemic boom, and and only the ones that were stupid about trying to be IP factories have gone away. You know,
I mean, that's
a lot,
another podcast
a lot.
conversation
Oh yeah,
too.
no, a lot of them have had ups and downs in that time.
Right.
Um, a disturbing number of them have had trouble at one time or another paying people, which
Yeah,
is
that's, I
whole,
think
that
that's
that
always what gets me the most is the not is, the overreach and not paying people because you tried to do too much.
yeah. I'm a big fan of risk is good, but not before you've paid the people whose livelihoods you're risking.
Right. And I think there are different models that can be used. I think I've learned a lot about different publishers and what they offer people, page rates or royalties, or
Right.
I I don't always hate the model of finding crowdfunded books and going from there.
I think that's
Like
actually a good model.
it's a great model because you know that the creative costs have already been covered. So you're not paying your artists because
I,
you know that your
and I
artists have
also
already been
think that
paid.
what the artist should be, and Heather brought this up when I was talking. She's like, "Yeah, one of the things I try to teach my artists is just because they put a contract in front of you doesn't mean you have to sign
I
it.
think
You don't have to take the first offer."
I think the things that we need at comic conventions are more contract law. I
Yep.
think we need more things, more resources for creators, ways for them to, you know, learn more about how to spot what's good and what's not good. And I think, I'm not gonna, with one of the IP Factory publishers and their recent public meltdown, I think, what I'm talking about.
I do.
I think that there's a lesson here, and that's like people are new to the industry and they're hungry. They want to get their stories out there. They want a publishing deal, and they sign the first thing that's put in front of them because they think, well, having any book is better than not having any published
Right.
book, right? And I think that it's kind of like
And honestly,
you
even
have to
in
like weigh the pros and cons to this. Like, is it worth it just to get this book
yeah,
in the direct market? Like, is that actually worth it? Like,
right.
is it worth it or is it not worth it? I think
Right.
is really the
Though
thing. And
what I will say is even as meltdowns of IP Factory comic book, at least their swings were in overprinting, not paying for Hollywood representation. You don't have their bankruptcy statements and see all of the money that they like the millions of dollars that they owe to Hollywood firms that you're sitting there going, why was this a good idea?
well, I think like we're seeing the big fallout of deals that were signed in 2019, early
Yeah.
2020 before the shutdown.
Yeah.
And then nothing got made for years, and then the strikes. And then
Right.
so we're seeing deals lapse and things that people thought were going to financially pay off, they're not financially paying
Right.
off. And they had put all their eggs in those baskets and it
Yep.
didn't work. And now what do we do?
Right.
And and unfortunately, that's like where we are right now.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, I mean, unfortunately, I have heard, I think, at least one non-payment story about all but two of the smaller presses, and those of have become big enough that I don't know that you can call them smaller presses anymore. I think at this point we're up to six that I call. I mean, obviously you have the big two, but I think there's
Mhm.
a pretty big four beneath that. Um,
Yeah.
and like everybody else, I think I've heard at least one story.
And I think in some cases it depends on your editor and who you
Right.
have advocating for you and your
And
story and
sometimes
everything. And
sometimes it's honest miscommunication.
yeah,
Sometimes it's less honest miscommunication, but at least good-hearted miscommunication.
Right.
And sometimes it's outright, hey, these
I don't
guys
have
don't
it.
know what they're doing.
Right. Sometimes it's just like, well, we don't have it. You didn't sell enough books, so it's not my problem anymore. Have a great
Right,
day.
right,
So,
right. Um,
yeah.
and
I'm
it's
like,
a
but oh
hard
boy,
business. It's a
it
hard
is.
business.
It is. And
And it always
people,
has been.
I think sometimes it's difficult for the smaller publishers to separate being a fan of comics and wanting
Yeah,
to be sort of like a celebrity publisher who
yeah,
is great at comics and
yeah,
actually being good at comics.
yeah.
Heather
Well,
and I
and
have talked before about how you kind of have to be, it's almost like a sickness, right? Like loving to make comics is almost like a sickness. It's not about wanting, I mean, what you do is largely behind the scenes, right?
right,
I mean, when you're a publisher and an editor, so like you have to love it so much that that's okay. And
right,
I think a lot of the smaller publishers, I think, get into a position where they are obsessed with being fans of comics, and it takes away from their ability to make the comics because they're so busy being fans, which you would think would lend itself in a positive way, but just doesn't always.
well, I think it also doesn't automatically give them business sense.
No. And like I didn't come from comics. Like obviously nobody, not everyone like fresh out of college does like internship to assistant to edit. Like that's not always the workflow,
Right,
but I actually worked in like sales and consumer products for
right,
most of my professional career.
right.
So I have a degree in poetry, which is super useful. So that's why I started working at the mall
Hey,
after college. So I got
I broke one of my students' brains the other day, particularly because I partially broke his brain because I think in words and he thinks in pictures, and
Mhm,
he can't figure out how it is that I literally can't make a picture in my head.
mhm.
I can make a really detailed oral description because I don't even see the words. I mean, that's how much I don't think in pictures. I don't see the words. I hear the words. um, but where I really broke his brain is I was writing a sonnet, and he's like, "You write sonnets?" I'm like, "Yeah, sometimes when I'm trying to figure out what I'm thinking, creating the putting constraints around it and making myself choose words helps me organize my thoughts." And he's like, "Wait, what?" I'm like, "Yeah, oh,
No, you think in
force,
words.
forcing myself to choose the right words,
And
or
that's
at least
not
to
something
really think
everyone,
about
yeah,
the words."
not something everyone can grasp. But yeah, I
And
learned a lot about
that's another reason that I
production.
love comics.
I came into it like knowing how to make things and sell
Okay.
the things that I made and also loving comics and loving writing and
So
like
you came in with a skill set that lots of
not a
comics
lot
people
of
don't have.
yeah,
There
a
you
lot of
go.
comics people did not come from like
That's what I was talking about in
production.
terms
Yeah,
of
so you kind of you kind of need to like I considered myself to be kind of an outside of the box editor
right.
for hiring decision and for someone to come in and like make an anthology, but I'm very good at project management and people management and sort of like wrangling people and being compassionate and understanding in terms of deadlines and helping people feel good about what they're making and feel good about being authentic with their storytelling. So I'm happy to like have all of my experience in production and sourcing and making things because it takes a little of the pressure off of the weird business side of comics that when you have to self-publish, not a lot of people have that aptitude. So it's
Right.
nice that it's already living in my brain so I can
Right.
focus on freaking out about crowdfunding
So
and
you mean so you
everything.
could actually put a realistic goal where when you meet
Yeah.
it, it means everybody gets paid rather than,
Yes.
oh, I think it's going to cost this. oh, wait,
Yeah.
now I'm not paying myself and I'm paying for everybody's shipping. I've heard that
Like,
story once or twice.
I love my spreadsheets, right? Like I love a spreadsheet, and not everybody can appreciate a nice sheet. It's nice to have
Right.
my all the numbers there, and I recalculate budgets like once a week for crowdfunding campaigns because you never know, like you can estimate before a campaign how many physical copies of a book people are going to order and how many digital they're going to order. You can estimate these things, but you're not really going to know like actually how many copies of the book you need to print until you're done with the campaign, right? So I tend to I tell people that your budget has to be fluid and you
Right.
have to recalculate it during your campaign, so that when you're
Wait a minute. You're telling comics people that a
yes,
budget,
yes,
something that they already don't really know what it is,
yes,
needs to be fluid, which is
yes,
something that they only think has to do with
water,
gender
yep,
and beverages.
gender and beverages, yeah, not trend, but not budgets, but gender and beverages, but
Right.
it's really hilarious. And now I'm like,
I'm
like
just
a
trying to see some of the comics creators I know, people I
well,
love dearly, and trying to imagine how much their heads would explode if you said the
well,
words fluid budget to them.
and that is why I had two editing tiers on the campaign and why they are both gone, because I know how to talk to people about their
Right.
crowdfunding budgets. That's why.
Yeah. No, I saw that. I was impressed that they were like the first two things to go. By the time I
Yeah,
logged in, they were gone.
yeah. So it's, and I think uh, crowdfunding is one of those things where it's sort of like you knew that you could, but you didn't stop to think if you should.
Right. Yeah.
Like it's not that everyone's story isn't worth being told and their project shouldn't be crowdfunded. It's more just like there's a lot that goes into it that I think
Right.
people don't understand when they're like, I really want to tell this story, so I'm gonna do a Kickstarter for it, and it's a good story, so it'll be successful. And it's like it's really just like not that simple. And I wish that it were. Trust me,
I
I
do
wish
too.
that it were.
I do too. Um,
Um,
it just occurred to me, and this is probably because I've had a long day and this has been your media day. We're like half an hour in, and I haven't told you to actually like pitch the project.
oh yeah, we're just like chatting. It's fine. Well, all right, Mom and John, hear me out really quick.
Mom works
Um,
in a library, so I mean that could be good.
oh, I love libraries.
I
I'm very
mean,
popular in the library system with my book color of always.
I mean it's a library in a red state, so I don't know if she'll be
Ooh,
littering.
I understand. I understand. When I was young is a book about stories that we would tell ourselves when we were younger, to help going through a hard time. So I sort of prompted all of the creators I reached out to with this sort of idea like, think about yourself when you were young, when you were 15, when you were going through something. Like, what would you now, if you had the opportunity to talk to that kid, what would you say? What story would you tell them, either about your life, about, you know, somebody else's life, about anything, whether it be metaphorical or completely autobiographical, or, in the case of your friend Christopher Cantwell, it's historical figures,
Yeah, I
which
just
is
noticed that.
amazing. And
That's so
so
Chris. So Chris.
it is, and it's amazing. And I literally cannot, I've
He's an
gone on
awesome nerd and yeah.
several history deep dives about the characters he's writing
Yeah.
about. So
Yeah.
it's, I just sort of asked that question, and it was such a simple prompt, and everyone kind of just took it and ran with it in such a wonderful way. And I'm so excited, and hopefully, we continue to do well with the crowdfunding, because I feel like making this book is the most important project I have ever worked on.
Well, I will say that as we've been talking, you crossed 14,000.
Did we?
Yeah.
Incredible. That's amazing.
14,010 right now.
Amazing, 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 amazing.
Hopefully by the time people listen to this, it'll be like at least 18,000 and maybe 20, because we got like 24 hours before this will go up. And people love this. People need to love this. Sorry, didn't
I
mean to interrupt.
think, no, it's fine. I think kind of like the idea behind it it really came from just me wanting to put something positive out into the world. I was feeling kind of down, and when I need to feel better, I want to make things, right? Like I think that's sort of like the creative impulse that people have. Like I wanted to do something that would have an impact in some way, and um, staying, committing to donate all profits to the Trevor Project is important to me because it's, advocacy for youth, for preventing suicide in the community, for LGBT kids. And it was an obvious choice for like which charity to pick because that's their mission. And the mission of the book, the theme of the book is, to bring some sort of advice and triumph and happiness in some way, some sort of hope to younger creators, but also I think to people like me, anybody that might want to read something that makes you feel like what you're going through isn't like, it doesn't make you othered. It doesn't make it, you're valid. Your feelings are valid. And, there's going to be stories in this book that connect with everyone. It's not just going to be for people in the LGBT community, because I think that having like having anxieties, feeling depression, feeling unsure of yourself, going through, traumas and dealing with family issues, friendship issues. I think all of those things they're deeply relatable. And I think that anyone would be able to pick this up and relate to these stories. And I think it's something that we really need. And beyond it being relatable to everyone, I think that in the world right now, there's so much going on that is so heavy and so many horrors that it's important that we say to the kids here that we aren't forgetting about you, even though it seems like our focus is elsewhere. Like I see that you're struggling. I see that it seems sometimes like the government is against you and that people are trying to take your rights away and that they're trying to take your books away and make things harder for you. That what can me in New York conceivably do about the laws in the South, right? In Texas and Florida, like what can I do? Because my vote here is good for the blue state and the blue county that I live in, right? Like we're fine ish. I mean, who's really fine? But like I can't really do anything about it other than try to like just put out into the universe that we aren't forgetting about these kids and that we care despite how our focus is kind of on the horrors of the world right now, because it's difficult not to focus on those horrors, right? And if one kid is brought some kind of hope as a result of anything that I'm doing here, if just one person feels less forgotten about, then it did its trick, I think.
Well, I mean, this is where I'm going to point out a couple of things for Mom and John and anybody else who might listen. Um, First, I loved how you talked about how it's not just for the LGBTQIA plus kids. Um, that 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 anxiety, that depression, that whatever is a very human um, experience. One of my catchphrases with my kids has become humaning is hard.
Yeah.
Humaning is hard. And I'll go a step further, which is the reason that books like genderqueer or drama or new kid are under fire right now is not just because they show the experience of an other. It's more because most kids reading them don't see them as experiences of an other. Even if you don't have the specific experience, you have enough experience with the feelings
Mm-hmm.
that other stops being an other. And that's the dangerous part. It's not
Mhm.
dangerous because they're afraid that, oh, we're going to turn kids gay. Doesn't work that
Mhm.
way. Doesn't work that way.
No,
Doesn't work that
no.
way. Trust me, if it worked that way,
Be a lot more gay people.
and or a lot less gay people, because it just doesn't work that way. You know, um, we don't get to choose who we are. I mean, we get to choose a lot about who we are. We get to
We get to
choose
choose.
what
We
we
get to
do.
choose how what we do with
Right,
who we are. We don't get
right,
to pick our fundamentally who we
right.
are. Like, but we can make
Um,
choices that impact who we can be going
right.
forward.
Um,
Because I just like hate is learned, right? Like
oh, absolutely.
nobody is born hating other people. That's something that people learn, and it can be unlearned if people have an open enough mind for it. And I think that telling stories that show trauma and feelings and that show relatable feelings, I think is important so that people outside of the community can read a collection like this and think, I didn't feel this exact thing, but I felt something so similar when I went through something else. Like maybe
Right.
we're not so different. And I
Um,
think that's like the point of continuing to tell queer stories and put out books like this, even in these times where they're burning books again somehow and banning books from libraries somehow, and like that this is where we are. I can't like fathom that this is where we are, but it is. Like it's important to just keep going because you can't let these like people's voices be silenced on these issues. And they're not, some of these things aren't even issues, it's just
they shouldn't be.
experiences, it's just people living, right?
Yeah.
Like it's important to continue to show people living. And like it's what people always say about trans kids, giving them the opportunity to be trans adults, right? Like let them grow up and make mistakes, let them be humans. Like that's the minute that we stop telling stories is when we've given up. So we just have to keep amplifying the voices that we can with the time that we're given.
You just gave me an excuse to finally read on air because I hadn't picked up the trade paperback the last time we talked to them. Do you know Sarah Gailey and Leon Ikangas at all? Did you read Know Your
Yeah.
Station?
Mm-hmm.
Know Your Station is so good. Um, but they went and threw in the back of the trade paperback a letter that was so good that I had to buy it again, even though I already had all of the single issues, all of the digital issues. Um, when I gave the trade to my brother, he told me about this letter, and I think it hits exactly what you were just saying. So I'm actually going to read it in its entirety, if that's okay with you. Um, and
Sure.
feel free to interrupt if there's anything that you want to comment upon. They wrote, human beings are fascinating creatures. We can form a sincere emotional bond with nearly anything. Pill bugs, succulents, cute coffee mugs, Roombas, robots that are programmed to tell us they're people. We recently learned of a theory which posits that humans are like this because our infants are so profoundly undeveloped at birth. Lots of species make babies who come out of the package with at least a few life skills, but a newborn human comes out completely helpless. It can't care for or even really comprehend itself. It isn't even equipped to communicate beyond the ability to emit the soul clenching sound of pure, unadulterated need. Caring for a creature like this is so exhausting, so taxing, so intermittently stressful that it stretches the bounds of one's capacity for reason. It is bad for the species if a caregiver, in a fit of overtaxed derangement, is inclined to huck the infant in their custody off a cliff. This theory proposes that in order to prevent this outcome as much as possible, humans evolved the ability to develop a genuine, intense filial love toward a baby. Any baby. We're social creatures who participate in communal caregiving. So this instinctive affection isn't reserved for babies who are genetically related to us. The baby could come from the other side of the planet and we'd still react to it in the same way. And babies look really different from day to day, month to month, kid to kid, emotion to emotion. So the net for what our brains categorize as baby is really wide enough that it can catch other adults, wild animals, and inanimate objects. To all of them, the little electric sponge inside my skull says, take good care of that. In the human mind, things that need care become, even if just for a moment, people. They're family. They're part of the community. Deserving of care and patience and understanding, power isn't what confers personhood, according to this theory. Instead, per this framework, we are hardwired to extend the concept of personhood and community to anything that we recognize as vulnerable. This theory challenges fascist ideas of innate human drive towards self-reliance and brutality. Fascism tells us that might makes right. It aims to build a system in which needing support is an unacceptable weakness. It tells us that we should find ways to deny humanity in ourselves. It tells us that we must condemn humanity in others. It tells us that we must destroy those who are vulnerable rather than extending them care. Oligarchs amass wealth in order to dominate that system, seeking a reality in which they can materially control the people they depend on for survival. That power and control allows them to remove themselves completely from the framework of human interconnectedness. By exempting themselves from human interdependence, by successfully escaping vulnerability, the wealthiest individuals on our planet put themselves into another category. Success under these conditions means that, even according to the boundlessly generous criteria of human understandings, they can no longer be accurately described as people. The ultimate project of wealth is an effort to exempt oneself from the very concept of humanity. They've told us how to treat them. We see no reason to argue. They had fun with that last paragraph. The ones before that are the ones that most popped into my head as you were talking there. We are so wired to care for each other. You don't find kids automatic. I mean, they roughhouse, but there's no better way for the 5-year-old so-called bully, except for the rare actual 5-year-old bully. I'm not saying that there are no 5-year-olds out there that haven't already
kids are
been
awful,
beaten down. But the biggest cure for the average 5-year-old so-called bully is to actually realize that he hurt the person.
Right.
The second he realizes
he doesn't understand.
He's devastated.
It's just because he hasn't learned yet that what he is doing is hurting someone.
Right.
So kids can be assholes. It is what it is. And whether
they're not developed enough.
Right, because they just don't know any better. I'll say it all the time. I'll be like, that toddler is an asshole. That 3-year-old, what a nightmare.
There's no greater sociopath than a 2-year-old.
Right, absolutely. Just because they have no idea.
Right.
Kids are great. They have no filter. They're fantastic, but wild and terrifying.
But yeah,
but not evil, not filled with hatred until they learn it. So
they have to. But that's what I think about when I hear you talking about sharing the experience of just being human, growing up, figuring oneself out.
Because it's so universal, and I think that, like, it's sort of like there's not a lot of publishers that publish stories by, like, I always say, stories by gay people for gay people. A lot of the time people make gay stories that are palatable for straight consumption. They sterilize things and make it very safe.
Or designed to try to inform us.
But a lot of it is very safe unless it is self-published and the creators are allowed to, like, really go for it. Right. So there's not a lot out there that's gay people telling their stories without a care for who picks it up, which is, I think, the privilege of self-publishing, because you really don't have to tell people to rein it in unless you're going for a certain age that you don't want to alienate, um, content wise, not not content of make it less gay, but content in make it okay if like a teenager reads this,
Right.
take out the F-bomb, that kind of thing.
I mean, uh, they're leaning too hard into it because it's not what they're doing, but there is truth to librarians and teachers make decisions about what books to teach, what books to carry.
Mhm.
That deciding not to have something in a library or in a classroom isn't the same thing as banning it. However, the reason that I say that they're leaning too hard into it is when you're coming from the outside and telling the librarians and teachers who have already decided to have that book in their library or their classroom that they can't anymore. That's much more ban-like.
Yes,
It
but that's where we are right now, unfortunately.
is. It is. Um,
But the way, I think the way through that is not to try to make stories that won't get banned. It's just to
no,
keep
it's
going.
just keep making great stories.
Right.
Just keep making great stories.
Just keep doing
Um,
it. Like
and I was
stopping doing it differently is not the way through
right.
or forward.
I was looking to try to figure out if they're still doing it because you talked about being in your blue state of New York. Um, Brooklyn Public Library was offering free membership
Oh yeah, like a
to
library card. Yeah.
right. I mean,
So
for
that so
50
that
bucks you
people
can get
could
a
read online.
yeah,
Yeah.
for 50 bucks you can get a Brooklyn Public Library card, period. But they were offering free library cards to students in red states essentially.
Yeah.
Um, so that's a way that
So
your
they
blue
could, yeah.
that's a way that your blue vote matters.
Right. But
Or your
like
blue state vote matters is that
that's all, that's what we can do, and
yeah.
that's what we're doing. Like,
Well,
you know what I mean? Like
and you
there's
can make things. You can make things. The more that's I mean, because again, I can't emphasize enough. Is it because it's gay? Kind of, but it's way more because it's human. But the more human things that are out there, the harder it becomes to say, oh, this one's different. People can't read it. You know, um, I mean, ask the Utah legislature when one of the first books that was like conclusively banned under their law was the Bible.
yep. That was funny. I enjoyed that,
I did too.
honestly.
I did too. But it certainly wasn't their intended um but that's the thing, the more the more good books are out there, the more good books are out there. And the great ones seek through and the ones that speak to one person or another person speak to one person or another person and that's just it's so important. Um it's so important with comics. The example I always use for the power of comics, just because I got to see something taught without comics and then with comics and saw how much more it sunk in, not just with the student, but with a couple of teachers who were working with the student. Um, I had a student who liked to use his speech social work time to have discussions about things generally from his history class. The biggest issue with this being that I had to manage to get the speech and social workers up to speed on whatever he was doing in the history class so they could actually practice having a conversation. Um, he was learning about Japanese interpreters. And
Mm.
I went, ooh, George Takei made a graphic
Yeah.
novel. And I said, hey, I think I can take like a 10-page, like I can choose these pages and kind of put them together. I'll show them to you. Then they can have this thing that they can really, digest in a few minutes. And I did this. And when I did this, it would then change the conversation, because as much as the social justice warrior in him had already been furious, um, there's one specific page that, like, and mind you, this was not a visual kid, or at least not a kid that we thought of as visual. I was putting the comics together for the teachers,
Mm-hmm.
but it wound up catching his attention because the first page, when they're at the racetrack and George and his brother are going, we get to sleep where the horses sleep. And his parents are going, we have to sleep horses. But because it's on the same page, because you can see the horror and terror in the parents' eyes juxtaposed over the the naive joy in the children's eyes, it gives an impact that no text and no movie could ever really give. Because in a text, you just can't express all of that well. And in a movie, if you showed happy kids in that situation, somebody would go ballistic.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you find happy kids? This isn't a happy. But no, they're kids. They're kids. They're still
They're
kids.
kids. They don't, and it's exciting to them.
But that, like, brought it home to the student and the other two adults in a way that no other learning that they had done did. And that's one of the things that excites me about anytime I see an anthology like this, where you're taking these very personal stories, or less personal but really great historic stories from Mr. Cantwell.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
but definitely ones that emphasize specific challenges, but you're using the
Mm-hmm.
words and the pictures in juxtaposition to, I mean, I know enough of these artists to know that the acting is going to be fantastic. you know? Um, so I mean, I assume you've gotten to see some. I assume some people are underway a little bit. Um,
Yeah, I've seen lots of scripts. I've seen some sketches, but it kind of takes it back to like I don't tell people to work until I
yeah,
know I
no,
can
I
pay
understand.
them.
Right,
So it's
right, right,
kind
right,
of like feel free to show me stuff
right,
if you get to it. And I've
right.
seen some stuff for the story that I wrote. It's heartbreaking. The art is so brilliant. I can't believe I wrote it, and I can't believe that the art is so beautiful so far that
Right.
honestly, like, regardless of what happens, like, I will, I don't want to think about it not funding, but I
We'll
will
get it
just
across.
pay the artists, like,
I will start making cold calls to people I know with money if it doesn't fund.
I mean, I mean, being over the 14K mark, being,
19 days to
I
go.
think
You're in
I
decent
keep
shape.
telling myself if I hit 18K is when I'll start to feel like it's going to happen,
Yeah.
because I think that's close enough that you can start your panic marketing.
Yeah.
But I think
It's
the way
so
that
weird
my
how these
story
things work
is coming
sometimes.
along, I know I will pay to have that finished regardless.
Yeah. It's
Um,
it's it's
but
so weird how these things work sometimes, because I feel like
yeah, I mean, I've got like two
this is
people
the
follow,
type of thing
like,
where you could see it immediately
yeah,
fly past.
and things on Kickstarter would be different because of the discoverability.
Right.
So we have our own challenges. I have like 200 people that are following it that haven't backed yet. And those are the
Well,
people that
that's
get the email 48 hours before it's over and
right.
they back at the end, right? So
Yeah.
that's that
That's
last 48 hours.
that's a
That's
that's
always
a
how
that's
it
a
is.
good. I mean, because uh, I'm less that way now, but there's certainly been a time where I was that guy because I have to make the decision when the money's going to come out of my account.
Right. And that's
When
fine.
I
That's
when
a
I
valid way to
know
be.
can I can afford it because I've also been that guy who like backed it, forgot it, and like
Right.
had to transfer money from savings when I got the message that the card didn't go through.
Right. No, I totally get it. It's like that's a super valid way to like to be, and it's just as the person running the campaign,
Right.
you can't count on anything with those people that haven't backed yet, right? So you
I
can
mean,
think about how
honestly, I
I can
wish that there
probably count on a
right,
couple grand for the last
right,
like 2 days. I can probably count on 2 grand. So like
right,
I have to try to like push this over the 20K mark
right,
so that I can feel less awful going into the
right.
last. I've got 19 days left.
You got
And
19
I
days.
am when I tell you I am fighting for my life every day, I am working harder than I have ever worked on anything to promote this. I'm
Well, then
recording every possible
maybe,
podcast, taking every interview. I am, in
maybe
the
I'll have to
trenches.
start randomly tagging people sooner.
I mean, look, it's not necessary to go too wild, but the sooner we fund, the more we'll be able to raise to donate is
Yeah,
kind of the way that I'm looking at it because
absolutely.
people, there are a lot of people out there that won't back crowdfunding unless it's already funded because they're like, well,
That's true too.
I don't even want to think about getting it if I'm definitely not going to get it. So they look at what's already funded and what do I want to buy? It's more of a pre-order than a crowdfund at that point. And there are people that shop that way. Again, totally valid. So it's like whatever I can do to get us over the line as quickly as possible will maximize the impact that we can have because we'll be able to get more in profit the quicker that we fund. So yeah, I mean, do you gotta do, man?
Absolutely. Okay, because I think we're both getting tired. I'm going to kick into my last two favorite questions to ask. They're
Yeah, give me your
slightly different.
questions and we'll go from
Well,
there.
well, the first is, and we're tired, so give me the short version. Um,
Sure.
like, well, unless you don't want to, I can keep going, but you look tired, and I'm trying to
Well,
be
I mean,
cognizant of that.
we're approaching 11. I've been working
Right.
since 8 o'clock this morning.
Exactly.
So
That's
yeah,
my point.
and
That's
I
my
am
point.
tired.
So give me the basic Michelle Abounader comic book love story. Like what? How did you get into comics? How did it go from getting into comics whenever you got into comics to bringing you to where you are?
Uh, I'll try to be brief because I feel like I've discussed this a lot. So anybody that's like
Well,
checking out this interview because I'm around is going to hear this again. When I was younger, I was into the Generation X comics. My sister and I used to read those. We loved them with the school and Jubilee and Husk, all of the usual suspects of Generation X. Loved those comics. Um, Kind of fell out of it for a while through like when you get a job and you're at extracurriculars in high school and was writing and doing theater like every other gay person. And I came back to comics. And the first book that I really connected with in my sort of like second, my second try at loving comics was Um, uh, Heathen Volume One. So really long ago when that was out, before Volume Two was even out, I think, and or Volume Two was out and Volume Three wasn't out yet, and I just loved it. I loved that I hadn't really understood before that point that comics could be something other than superheroes and X-Men and the big two. I didn't really have a
Yeah.
greater understanding of of what comics really could be. And I started to pick up some different books based on recommendations from people working at the shop. Like, oh, you like this, you'd probably like this. And I kind of went a little wild, and I just like read as much as I could of these like new indie books that just had so much more of what I connected with. And so Heathen really opened that door for me. And as someone who had done a lot of writing, poetry, short fiction, um, just like journaling again, like whatever. But I started to see things a little bit differently. And I had always been a bit of a storyteller in terms of my own writing. And I thought more about how much I loved the like visual aspect of telling stories with comics, and how much that tied into my love for TV and film, my love for, you know, some theater. I often say I'm just like not a theater person. I love like some theater, but I'm not like a theater student. But that's a
Right.
different type of person, which I'm sure you're aware. But like
I know my share of theater people.
right. So I there was just something about storytelling through comics that I really loved and connected with, and wondered if it was something that I could do. And then I met people in like a similar position to myself in comics that were either just starting to make comics or wanted to make comics. And then that's when I met Brent Fisher, and Brent and myself put together The Color of Always was the first comic book I worked on. And very grateful that my first book was a successful anthology, and that was the first comic script I wrote that was in that book. And I met some incredible people making that book, and will forever be grateful for my time working on that with Brent, and how much I learned during that book cycle about making comics and telling stories in that way. And I've come so far in my own knowledge of the industry and of how to write comics and how to make comics since then, but that's really how it started. So I mean, I always joke that I can't get through an interview without talking about Heathen.
I'm a
I
fan.
probably mentioned it like 6 or 7 times by the end of this call, but it's
I'm a
kind of a
fan.
joke. It's
I'm a fan. It's a good book.
can't
My wife
can't get
likes
through
it
an
too.
interview without talking about Heathen. And it's Natasha is a friend of mine now, and we've worked together a couple times. And she's in When I Was Young, and it doesn't get old. I think it might get old for her listening to me talk about Heathen, but I hope it doesn't. I'll always be a big fan of that book because I think that it really sort of lit a different creative fire in my brain, made me think maybe this is something I could do. And I think I'll forever be grateful for Natasha and for her creating Heathen so that I could have that moment to find this for myself. I tell her that all the time. Don't worry. I'm very open and honest about that with her. I'm sure she hates it, but it is what it is.
I'm sorry. You got me all like wanting to, so I might have just, I've abandoned Twitter, but I spend plenty of time on Blue Sky now. And,
Uh-huh.
I may have just been tagging friends who have bigger reach than I do to, hopefully,
I'm like, I keep forgetting I have like 80 notifications on Blue Sky because I haven't checked it in forever.
um,
I'm
okay.
so bad at Blue Sky, so bad at Blue Sky. Like,
So you're not allowed to say heathen because you already brought it up. But we will say that people should go read Heathen so Michelle
go
can
read
talk to them
Heathen,
about Heathen.
honestly.
Um, my last question that I love to ask is, um, tell me a comic that you love that not enough other people have read, and you want them to read it so you can talk to them about it.
Without a doubt, I'm not going to say Heathen. Without a doubt, there's a graphic novel called Taproot by Keezy Young. That is probably my favorite book I've ever read, in terms of an OGN. And it's so beautiful. And every time I read it, I just find myself just crying. There's just something about it that that just I really connect with it. It's so lovely and it's such an incredible story. I love it so much. And I recommend it to anybody who will listen to me because I truly think that is one of the best OGNs I think that has ever come out. And I wish more people knew about it and would pick it up. It's very,
Well,
very adorable and lovely and perfect. And I'm probably going to read it. Maybe I'll read it tonight and have a good cry before I go to bed.
yeah, I just tossed it on my digital pile.
Awesome.
So
Please reach out if you do get a chance to read it.
yeah, I
It's
I read both of Heather's recommendations from
what did Heather
Saturday
recommend to you?
already.
I'm
Uh
curious.
Crashing and Rogue,
Rogues Gallery.
yeah,
Yeah.
Crashing and Rogues Gallery. She
Crashing is
asked if
a
it was,
great book.
what, they were both great books. They're both amazing
Yeah.
books. She asked if it was okay if she recommended books that she'd edited, and I said, of course it's
Yeah.
okay if you. It'd be a little weirder if you'd written or drawn them, but as an editor,
Fair. Totally fair.
you're
Um,
supposed to find stuff that's great, and you're supposed to continue plugging it. Um, so yeah, they were amazing. So,
oh, and
Michelle,
if I'm allowed to throw something in there that
you're
I
allowed to
edited,
throw
um,
literally
there's a
anything you wanted.
there's a one-shot comic that I edited. It's called Etheris, Etheres. It's just a one-shot single issue. It was a Source Point Press book, but it should be available on like Global Comics. And it I it's poetic narration, beautiful, haunting horror art, gorgeous, gorgeous book. And it's just so lovely. And working on this book was so wonderful. I absolutely I love the writer. I love Anas. I love Dennis. They're great people. Even the lettering is also great. I edited the narration and the poetry, and it was a great experience for me as someone who, writes and loves poetry. So if you have a chance to check that one out, I that's
Spell for
also
me
a
again.
Etheres. The cover is like green with like a girl on it.
There we go. It is in fact on Global Comics.
Perfect. Beautiful, beautiful book. So that's another thing I wish more people had the opportunity to read.
Well, you had me at poetry,
Yeah,
so
really, really beautiful.
because I don't think that there's enough um comics with poetry. There's been
One thing
some
that
good stuff,
I'm
but I'd
really
like to see
passionate
more.
about is poetry with comics, and I have a few little pitches dancing around in my head that someday
I do
maybe
like
if
that we're
I if
seeing
I get a break,
yeah,
like
I do like that we're seeing way more music in comics.
yeah.
Um there was for a while, and I don't have all of them, anthology, like an indie anthology comic called Ink Brick. It was all
Mm.
poetry comics.
I just think there should be more, and
There should
I think
absolutely
that
be more.
I think you'll like this one. And my story in When I Was Young is poetic narration,
That's good to
no
know.
dialogue and comic.
Cool. Cool.
So I think,
All right. Let me
yeah.
take us out so I can
Okay.
babble at you for a couple more minutes before letting you go,
Sure.
without,
Sure.
having to have you be on. Um,
Sure.
so so for Michele Abounader, this has been 22 Panels. We will see you after the next page.
When I was youngcomic.com. Back the book.
Hey guys, this is Tyler from 22 Panels. I'm here to tell you all about our Patreon. If you enjoy this show, please consider donating to our Patreon to keep this show going. We have many different tiers, all different levels to help you decide what's right for you. Okay, so get on out there to patreon.com/22 Panels Podcast.